Afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time of day it is for you, good that. Hi, my name is MiKo, and I've decided to start doing some more video content for my YouTube channel. Now, first of all, disclaimer, the video quality and the sound quality in particular are going to be pretty awful in this, and I'm sorry. I'm looking at getting some new equipment that'll come in and everything will be better. Until then, please bear with me. So for those of you that don't know, there's been a lot of discussion, mainly in the poetry community, about the morality or the ethics of poets doing poems for big companies. There's been a few companies that have sort of jumped on the bandwagon of using spoken word to promote their product, including things like banks. Now, some amazing poets have been involved in these campaigns. Some really well known, some not so well known, and there's been an awful lot of backlash. There are those who would argue that the reason they're upset is simply because it's not moral. That's not what art is for. So while some people are arguing that it's just not right to sell your poems in general, there are others arguing that it can be fine, but just not to banks or companies like that. And I guess the question is, where do you draw the line? Personally, I've got no problem with anyone making money from their art. And I think that there is definitely some people who are just jealous that it wasn't them. I think that's definitely a small portion of people that are like that. But I don't think that's most people. And I certainly don't think that that discredits all other arguments. There is definitely something to be said about where you draw the line. So for some people, there are certain companies that you just wouldn't get behind. A really good example of this is Donald Trump. At his inauguration, so many bands refused to do it. And even ones that did agree to do it then pulled out, all this kind of stuff, because even though there was probably a fair check in it, they didn't want to be associated with Donald Trump and what he represents. Personally, I try not to buy Coca-Cola or Nestle products. I wouldn't say I boycott them because I do sometimes slip up. If you're interested at all in why I don't support Coca-Cola or Nestle, then we can have that conversation another time. But for other poets and other people, there's a whole list of companies that they don't want to support. And you have people that basically don't like capitalism, which again is completely fine. But you've got a whole bunch of people currently judging other people for doing something that they wouldn't. And I guess my main question would be, does it affect you? Does it affect your ability to make money or to make art? We live in a capitalist society, and whether or not we should is another debate, which again I'll probably do a video on at some point. But at the end of the day, those people who are trying to be full-time in their profession as artists need to make money, and sometimes that draws into question where you stand on certain things. For example, I did a commission for the BBC before the independence referendum. And first they tried to pay me pretty much nothing, but we spoke it out, and eventually they paid me a fair amount, and I did it. But by the time I'd done that, and by the time the independence referendum came around, it became really, really clear just how biased they were being in their coverage of the Scottish independence referendum, and it made me feel quite conflicted with things. And like I say, with everyone, there is a point, not only just a point of morality that you're suddenly okay or not okay with, but also a point of money. We all like and need money. Maybe you don't want to buy a yacht, but it would be quite nice to have food sometimes. When I was back in school, I don't know if anyone else had this, but there was always those conversations of, what would you do for £1 million? What a disgusting thing that you definitely wouldn't do. But there comes a point where you go, right, that's a life-changing amount of money. There was was it Katie Tunstall? I think it was Katie Tunstall got offered to do a Coca-Cola advert and turned it down. That's amazing to me. That must have been a pretty hefty fee that she was being offered. And on top of that is huge amounts of exposure. That's got to be really difficult to turn down. And another thing to consider is when she turned that down, she was already at a certain level of success that she's getting approached by Coca-Cola. So maybe she had a bit more financial comfort than she used to. And maybe that plays into it. Perhaps if they had offered her the exact same thing before she'd done soundtracks for movies and had hits in the charts, would her answer still been the same? I'm not saying it wouldn't, I'm not saying it would, I don't know Katie Tunstall. Just in the same way that most of us wouldn't steal a loaf of bread, but if you had no money and there was bread there and your children were starving, of course you would steal a loaf of bread. There's individual markers, and I guess that's my point, is it comes down to the individual. And maybe I'm missing something, but I just don't feel like it affects other people. It's an interesting thing to talk about, but I don't think there's a need to get really upset, and I certainly don't think there's a need to be disrespectful or trash the poets and performers and writers that have done this. It's like complaining about what someone else is cooking, going, oh, I wouldn't cook that, I wouldn't eat that. Well, you don't have to. No one's making you do it, and it's not in any way infringing upon your ability to live how you want to cook your food or write your poetry the way that you want to. And I guess that's what sort of confuses me about it all in the end. It's not like it somehow devalues spoken word. If anything, it raises the value of spoken word. It gets it out there to more people. It makes it more mainstream and accessible. And even if you don't do that style, it opens it up to more people. It makes me think of music. I was into a lot of heavy rock and metal when I was growing up. And whenever a heavy band got into the charts, people were angry. Like they didn't want metal to be in the charts because it almost went against what metal was meant to be. But you know what? Machine Head can continue being Machine Head even if Linkin Park have a #1 hit. The point is, regardless of what another artist is doing, you can still do what it is that you do. And I guess people's response to that is, well, it makes that type of spoken word or art, music, whatever it is, more popular, which makes it even harder for people that don't do that style. And what it can also do is encourage people to emulate and recreate that style with less sincerity. What I'd really be interested in finding out is how many poets were approached to do these adverts and said no. So yeah, that's the end of this video. Are you an artist? What kind of art do you do? And what companies would you not accept money from? What companies would you not write for? Please do leave comments down below. I don't imagine a lot of people will see this, so I'll reply to them all. And yeah, like I say, I'm going to get better equipment and we'll do a bit more of these. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay awesome. I'll see you soon.